One for the vault here in Toronto.
She was 1 point away from losing everything she had just built. Not her ranking, not her paycheck. Something more fragile than that. The story the entire tennis world had just started telling about her. And for almost an hour, that story looked like it was about to fall apart in front of thousands of people who had shown up expecting a coronation, not a collapse. So what actually happened on that court in Toronto? Why did a player riding the best week of her career suddenly look like she was drowning? And why did the woman on the other side of the net seem to already know exactly how this was going to end? Stay with this one, because the answer is not what you think, and it changes the way you should be watching Alex for the rest of this year. Rewind 7 days. Alex walks off a court in Washington holding a trophy she has never held before. WTA 500 title. The kind of result that does not just add a line to a resume, it rewrites the question everyone is asking about a player. Before that week, people whispered about her potential the way you whisper about a rumor you are not sure is true yet. After that week, the whispering stopped because potential had just turned into proof, sitting right there in her hands. But here is the part nobody warns you about. A trophy does not buy you rest. It buys you a target. The moment Alex became a champion, every single opponent left on her calendar stopped thinking about beating a rising talent and started thinking about beating the woman who just won. That is a different kind of pressure entirely, and it does not wait for you to catch your breath. It follows you straight onto the next plane, straight into the next city, straight onto the next court. And the next court was Toronto. Bigger stage, deeper draw, sharper opponents. And somewhere in that draw was a 20-something American named Caty McNally, who had just done something that should have made every remaining player in the tournament nervous. She had walked onto a court against the reigning Wimbledon champion, a player who was supposed to be untouchable on paper, and she had beaten her. Not scraped by, beaten her. Which means when Caty looked across the net at Alex, she was not thinking about being the underdog. She had already proven to herself, in the most public way possible, that she could take down a champion. So picture the collision that was about to happen. On one side, a young star riding 6 straight wins and the emotional high of the biggest title of her career. On the other, a player who had just tasted the exact kind of upset everyone assumed only happened to other people. 2 completely different sources of belief, about to be tested against each other in real time. And for a while, it looked like no contest at all. Alex came out and made it look almost unfair. Sharp footwork, quick decisions. She was not waiting for chances, she was hunting them, taking the ball early and putting Caty in defensive positions point after point. The first set slipped away from Caty at 6-3, and if you were watching casually, you might have already closed the tab, assuming the outcome was locked in. That is exactly the moment tennis loves to punish people for assuming anything. Because losing a set does not always break a player. Sometimes it frees them. Caty had nothing left to prove about whether she belonged on that court. She had already answered that question against a Wimbledon champion days earlier. So instead of folding, something shifted in her. It was not loud. It was not one dramatic point that changed everything. It was quieter than that and somehow more dangerous. Rallies that used to end in 3 shots started stretching to 7. Balls that used to sail past her started coming back, one more time than Alex expected, again and again. And if you have ever watched a match slowly tilt without a single obvious turning point, you know exactly how unsettling that feeling is for the player standing on the other side of it. Alex could feel it. Anyone could feel it. The rhythm that had carried her through the first set was being dismantled, not with power, but with patience. And here is where the real tension of this story begins. Because Alex was suddenly facing a decision every great competitor eventually faces. Do you force it? Do you try to end the discomfort immediately by going for something bigger, something faster, something that puts you back in control right now? Or do you sit inside the discomfort and let it play out? The temptation to force things is enormous, especially when you are 1 set away from finishing a match you thought was already decided. And forcing things is precisely what a player like Caty is hoping you will do, because rushed decisions create openings, and openings were exactly what she had been quietly engineering for the last several games. The pressure kept building, point by point, game by game, until the second set reached its breaking point. Caty closed it out 7-5. Just like that, the manageable, comfortable version of this match was gone. Erased. In its place stood something far more dangerous for Alex. A deciding set, with everything she had built over the past week suddenly hanging on the next 30 or 40 minutes of tennis. Let that sit for a second, because this is not simply about who wins a tennis match. This is about what happens inside a young athlete's mind the moment the story she believed she was writing gets ripped out of her hands. Alex had just become a champion. She had carried a 6-match winning streak into this tournament. She had won the first set comfortably. And now, suddenly, all of it was in jeopardy. Not because she played poorly, but because the player across the net refused to accept the outcome that seemed obvious an hour earlier. This is the part of sports we rarely get to see clearly, because highlight reels only show you the winners and the final scorelines. They do not show you the internal negotiation happening inside someone's head when the pressure spikes, and there is no more room for a mistake. One player is going forward, one player is going home. Both of them know exactly which one they want to be, and neither of them knows yet which one they will become. So think about what was actually available to Alex in that moment. She could let the disappointment of losing the second set bleed into the third. She could start playing frantic tennis, chasing points instead of building them, trying to erase the deficit with one enormous shot instead of trusting the process that got her here in the first place. Plenty of talented players have done exactly that and watched a winnable match slip entirely out of reach. Or she could do something much harder. She could forget the scoreline completely. Forget the trophy sitting back home in Washington. Forget the 7-match streak riding on this outcome, and focus on nothing except the very next point in front of her. That sounds almost too simple to matter, doesn't it? But try doing that with a crowd watching, with a confident opponent feeding off her own momentum, with an entire tournament narrative quietly forming around whether the new champion was about to get exposed in her very next event. Simple is not the same as easy. The deciding set began, and immediately you could feel the temperature of the match had changed completely. Nothing about the opening set's rhythm carried over. Every single point now came loaded with consequence. Caty kept pushing, because she could sense the door was still open, and she had already proven to herself that she knew exactly how to walk through a door like that. Alex kept answering, point after point, refusing to let one loose game turn into two, refusing to let frustration write the next chapter of the match for her. And here is where the real transformation happened, the part that does not show up in a box score, but matters more than almost anything else in this entire story. Alex stopped chasing the finish line and started building toward it instead. That distinction sounds small, but it is the difference between panic and control. A player who is chasing a win is reacting to the scoreboard, letting fear dictate shot selection, playing not to lose instead of playing to win. A player who is building toward a win is doing the unglamorous, invisible work, point by point, decision by decision, refusing to let one moment define the entire outcome. Alex chose to build. She stayed patient through long exchanges instead of forcing risky winners. She waited for real chances instead of manufacturing fake ones out of desperation. Small decisions, over and over, quietly stacking in her favor even as the match remained close enough to slip away at any second. And Caty was not going anywhere either. She kept fighting, kept extending points, kept reminding Alex that nothing in this deciding set was going to be given to her. Every game carried weight. Every unforced error felt magnified. This is the stretch of a match where careers either take a step forward or get sent backward, and both players knew it without anyone needing to say it out loud. Slowly, agonizingly, Alex began pulling ahead again. Not through one spectacular shot that flips a broadcast into a highlight package. Through discipline. Through a string of decisions that refused to crack under pressure. And even as the finish line came into view, there was no premature celebration, because she had already lived through what happens when you assume a match is over before the final point is actually played. She had watched that exact story unfold just one set earlier, and she was not about to let history repeat itself twice in the same afternoon. Point by point, game by game, Alex closed out the final set 6-4. Final score, 6-3, 5-7, 6-4. Read that scoreline slowly, because a straight sets win tells you a player was simply better on the day. This scoreline, better on the day. This scoreline tells you something far more valuable. It tells you what happens when a player gets knocked off balance and has to find her way back without any safety net left underneath her. And that is precisely why this particular victory matters more than the 7 straight wins it extended. Because the earlier wins built the streak. This one tested it. Stress tested it under real pressure, against a player who had already proven she was capable of shocking a champion, and the streak survived anyway. Think about what Alex now carries forward that she did not have before this match. She has a memory, a real, lived memory of leading a match, watching that lead completely disappear and finding a way through anyway. That is not something you can manufacture in practice. You cannot simulate that pressure with a coach feeding balls across the net. It only exists once you have actually stood inside it and come out the other side. And now, somewhere down the road, when another opponent pushes her into a similar corner, there will be a quiet voice inside her reminding her that she has already been exactly here before, and she already knows the way out. That is not a guarantee of future wins. Nothing in this sport guarantees anything, but it is something close to armor, and very few young players get to build that kind of armor this early in a career. Give credit where it belongs too. Caty did not fold after dropping the first set, and she did not fold after Alex closed out the third. She fought for every single point of that comeback, forced a deciding set out of a match that looked finished an hour earlier, and reminded an entire stadium that upsets do not require luck. They require someone refusing to accept the obvious outcome. That should matter to every other name still left in that Toronto draw, because it proves something uncomfortable. Alex is not moving through this tournament untouched. She is not simply steamrolling overmatched opponents on her way to an easy trophy. She is being tested, genuinely tested, and so far she keeps finding an answer. And that changes the entire conversation happening around her right now. A week ago, the question was whether Alex could actually win a title as big as Washington. She answered that. Then the question became whether that win was real, or whether it was a one-time spark that would fade the second the pressure returned in a new city. She has now answered that too, in the hardest possible way, by getting pushed to the edge and refusing to fall off it. So here is the much bigger question sitting over the rest of this tournament, and honestly, over the rest of her season. Anyone can look dangerous when everything is going their way. The serve is landing, the legs feel fresh, the opponent is cooperating. That version of dangerous is common. It fades the moment adversity shows up. But the version of dangerous that should actually worry every remaining player in that draw is different. It is the player who gets outplayed for an entire set, who watches momentum drain completely out of her hands, who stares at a deciding set with everything on the line, and still finds a way to walk off that court as the winner. That is rare. That is the kind of quality that turns a good week into a genuine breakthrough season. 7 straight wins is no longer just a number sitting next to her name in a bracket. It is a warning to everyone left in that tournament. The Washington Trophy is no longer just a nice moment from last week. It is proof that traveled with her into a much tougher environment and held up under real fire. And this 3-set battle against a player who had already proven she could dismantle a Wimbledon champion is no longer just another result buried in a schedule. It is evidence, sitting right there in the record, that Alex can lose control of a match completely and still take it back before the final point is played. So think back to that opening question. What actually happens when the player everyone expects to win suddenly looks like she might lose? You now know the answer, at least for this one afternoon in Toronto. She does not disappear. She does not panic her way out of the tournament. She resets, she rebuilds, and she finishes the job anyway. And if that is genuinely who Alex has become, not the player chasing a breakthrough anymore, but the player who has already survived the moment that usually ends breakthroughs early, then the real story of this tournament is only just getting started. And the only honest question left to ask is simple. How far can this actually go?